Hi there, everybody. So today we're going to be looking at the release notes for version 6.4. So the first major sort of shift that we're going to see here in this one is the whole idea of extensions becoming a bit more like apps that you might install from an app store. So previously we had the extensions mainly for the agency partners to do with like granular white labeling, the ability to import and export modules, the setup of modules, and direct billing for your clients. And they were kind of just tick boxes you could turn on and that would activate it. But now what we're seeing is this shift to more of a extensions app sort of store type scenario. So if you go into the site settings of a trial site or a live site, under the extensions tab, we're now going to see more of this sort of style where each extension is its own little unit or app, and you can view more information about it and of course install it from that location. So by default we're just going to see a list of available extensions, and they may change based on maybe the site level or your partner, your reseller level. And of course, more extensions are going to be coming in the future. So at the moment, it's just going to list all the available ones to you. I could choose to install one, like this granular white labeling, and that'll move into this section at the top here for installed extensions, so you can see what ones are installed, obviously. And then if the extension calls for it, there would be like a settings button or something like that to configure the actual extension. So this whole shift has come about mainly because the first sort of real extension that we're seeing now is the website backup extension, which we've now got here. And this is in beta mode at the moment, so it's free at the moment, it's in beta, but it will actually be a paid extension and will be available to all reseller levels, I'm assuming, and to all site levels. So it will be a paid extension once the beta is over, and the next item on the list explains more about this. So basically this extension is going to allow you to do complete, like whole backups of your website. You can schedule that or do it manually, and it also enables rollback functionality for all the items on your website, custom modules, blogs, products. So if you make a mistake in any item, you can roll back to a previous version. Now there is sort of a free level of the rollbacks functionality. So on all sites for pages and content templates, we're going to see the rollback versioning in place for those by default, even if you don't have the website backup extension installed. So that rollback functionality is going to be available. Apparently it's not there at the moment. There's just a bug that's not allowing that to display or something. So I can't sort of demo that in this review, but just to know that, yeah, for pages and templates, that will be available to everyone. But then when you install the backup extension, rollbacks will be available to all items. Okay, so I'm just going to install this one now. And so it moves to the installed extensions, and we can see there's a settings button for this particular one. So going into there is where you can set up how your backups are done. So you can simply back up now, and that will just start a backup process. Or if you go to the settings, you can set up a schedule. So every 1 or 31 weeks, days, month or year, and just set a time that you want that to happen. And all these options are detailed in the release notes, but I'll just run through them quick visually. So if you have some behaviors around low storage, so if there isn't enough storage in the backup package that you have, you can choose to just email the portal owner, so the reseller, and it won't do the backup. It will just alert the reseller, or you can choose for it to delete previous or older backups in to make space to do the new backup. And it will just keep deleting old backups until it creates enough space for the new backups. And if it deletes all of them and there isn't enough space still, then it will revert to just sending that email to the reseller, basically saying there's not enough space. And then there's the storage option. At the moment, we only have Treepl storage, so that's like a separate storage to your actual website, but still in the AWS infrastructure. And I assume after the beta, with maybe the next version or two, we'll see options for external storage, so Dropbox and Google Drive. And you can also choose the package or level of storage that you require for your site, or upgrade to different packages later on. Okay, so obviously pricing around the extension itself and the different packages or storage options, that's all just being worked out at the moment. So probably after the beta, we'll have a better idea on what sort of pricing this is positioned at. Okay, so I'll just head back. Once you take a backup, so I might just do a backup now. And obviously, depending on your site size, how long this is going to take, but this is just a new, sort of an empty install of the yoga template. And it doesn't take too long to do the backup, as you'll see. It's just like a minute or two. Now, the good thing, if you choose to cancel this backup while it's in progress, it'll actually revert all those changes back to the previous state, and won't actually, won't do a half backup or anything like that. And if you're restoring a backup that's been made and you cancel it, it will also revert all those changes that it was making back to the original state. So yeah, you can cancel these operations as well. Okay, so you can see it's made that backup version. It's given it a date, a type, which I'll explain in a minute. It'll show the size, so you can get an idea on, okay, what sort of size are these backups taking up. And you can actually download this backup and store it locally too. So that's always an option too. If you're running out of space, you can download some of the older ones and delete them manually from here to create space yourself. And then, of course, you can restore any of the backups that are in the list. Now, the type refers to how the backup was made. So in this case, you can see it's manually because I did a manual backup. If it's a backup deriving from your scheduled settings, then your type will be scheduled. Okay, and up the top here, we've got an overall view of the storage usage. So we can see our 8.29 meg of our 1 gig storage package has been used. And so just touching back on the downloads, if you have been downloading backups and storing them locally, and you've deleted those backups, you can come to the little the auxiliary menu here and upload a backup file. Now, the downloads, as I understand it, are sort of tracked to your reseller portal. So you can only upload backup files that are from your portal. So you can't create a backup of a site and give it to someone, another reseller or another partner, and have them upload it to their site as a way of sort of transferring sites at the moment. So they are sort of tied to your reseller ID. Okay, so just looking at the release notes, so this goes into the details of the the restore process. All the workflows are all listed there if you want to read through those. Uploading a backup. So then the backup logic, so actually sort of explain in more detail on what's happening, and from what I understand, it's backing up the entire site. So even the admin settings, so if you've customized the menu, changed icons, all those settings to do with the entire site, all the database, all the file structure is all backed up. Then there's just some exceptions here, basically when there's not enough space. So there's some details about what happens if there's not enough space, so you can read through that. Okay, and it just goes into the low storage email that gets sent out, what that looks like. And the last little note here is interesting. So if you install the extension, the backup extension, and have some backups in there, and then maybe a client says they don't want it anymore and you uninstall it, all those backups remain in the system. So if you come back at a later time and reinstall the extension, those backups will still be there. So they're probably going to be well outdated, but they are maintained in case those backups are still needed after the decision's made to uninstall the app. Okay, so the next item here is, of course, the page rollback option. So as I said, it's going to be available for pages and content templates by default, so you won't have to install the app, you'll get that. But if you want page rollback or item rollback for everything else, it comes with the backup extension. So I'm going to jump into a trial site here. So obviously I can't show it to you on pages, but I'm going to start with products because there's a little note about something in products here. So actually the first thing it's noting here is sort of a little change to existing functionality, and that's for downloadable products, when you upload a file that is to be the downloadable file for that product, we're now actually going to see that in the file manager. So previously they're kind of hidden just in the system, but now the file manager will show this downloadable products folder, and as you upload a file to a product, a folder will be created of the ID of that product, and the actual files will be stored in there. So this kind of relates to the rollback functionality, because if the file is a change that you made and you want to revert back to a previous product that had a different file, all those previous files will still be stored in the file structure, and you can actually see them in the file structure as well. So they don't get deleted, I think, as they used to. So not only will the rollback functionality restore them, you'll be able to see them in the file manager as well. But just to note, these are still secured. So even if you try and visit the image path or the file path in the browser, you'll still get a 404 page not found, because they still need to be secured. So you can only access them with the special link that the system creates after purchasing the product. Okay, so I'll just go to product now just to show the rollback functionality. So what you need to do first off with other modules from the pages and templates is to actually turn the rollback feature on. So under the settings of whatever module you're working with, I think it's under settings, and then down here we've got this new accordion object called extension settings, and at the moment we've just got enable rollback option, so we can turn that on and save. And now when we head to a product, we're going to see this history button at the bottom here. Okay, and if I click on that, we'll see there's no history at the moment because we've only just enabled it. So I could maybe change the name of this item, click save, then go to the history, and we'll see that there's now an entry logged in the history. So this is, of course, the previous state that I had. So before I changed the name, this has saved the previous state. So what will happen if I choose to preview this? Basically, it just will tell me that it's going to restore a preview of it. So basically it just populates the edit form with all the previous settings. So in this case it was the old name, but it will work for all the properties and options that we have on this particular view. And you can see that instead of save it says restore, so I could restore that back to that version. Now, one thing to note here with this is that it is kind of set up to save like the section that you're working on or the tab that we're on. So for settings, which most modules just have settings and SEO. So if you make a change in the settings, it saves a version of the settings. And if you make a change in the SEO tab, it will save that version as a separate SEO version. So in this case, I'll change the item here and look at the history here, and you can see there's still only one item, and this is actually an SEO item because we're viewing it from the SEO page. So just to demonstrate that a little bit better, if I make another change, look at the history, so I've got 2 records there now, but if I head back to the settings tab and look at that history again, there's still just that original change, and that's specific for the settings tab. So there's kind of 2 levels of versioning happening here. So at the moment, particularly for products that have a whole bunch of other tabs, prices, catalog, attributes, etc., there's no versioning on those as yet. So if we head to prices, of course we don't see any versioning there. So it's only for settings and SEO at this stage, and they're separate versioning. Okay, so what else do the notes say? So just about the restrictions, that it comes along with the backup extension, and you have to enable it. Okay, so that's just discussing what I just went through. Okay, and just more on how it records the rollback or version. You'll notice that, so of course it gives it a date and time, so we know when it happened. It records the editor, so we know who made the change and whether they're a portal owner or an admin user. And also the source, so this is interesting and quite helpful to sort of understand where the changes were coming from, how they were being made. So as it says here, we've basically got admin UI, so that means it was changed in the admin. You've got FTP, so that means that the change happened via an FTP transfer. There's edit item, which means it came from the front end, so particularly for like customer submitted custom module items, where you've got a front end form that can submit those or change those items. It logs that type of change, and also via import. So if the changes were made because of an import, it will be listed as such. And in the case of imports, both settings and SEO versions are created because, of course, with an import you can change both of those simultaneously. Okay, so then it just goes on to explain that there's different sets, as I said, for SEO and settings. Okay, and so the other important thing to note is that the versions are stored only for 90 days. So it says here every 6 hours the rollback records are checked and any that are older than 90 days are removed. So this is kind of separate to how you configure the site backup and to do with storage and your schedule and all that sort of thing. Page rollback or item rollback is just a 90-day rolling thing. So at this point in time, we can't change that. Okay, then it talks about the rollback flow itself. So obviously, once you click restore, it previews the changes, and you can click the restore button to basically resave all those same values again. But there are cases where the restored version may not be possible, where maybe there was values that were saved, like for categories or data source fields that were available but now are no longer available when you try and do that restore. So it checks for all those sorts of mismatches of data that can no longer be put in place. Also, if the field type has changed, so maybe it was a number field but now it's a string, so all those sorts of mismatches. So it checks for those and presents error messages if that's the case. So you will know what's not aligning and not matching up if those cases arise. Okay, and the delete function, so you see there's a trash can alongside the rollback options. This is only available to the reseller. General admin users cannot delete the versions. Permissions, so you can also control who can see the versioning or who can interact with the versioning in the admin user roles as well. So under settings, admin user roles, if you've created a role, just with everything else, there's granular options there. So for example, under pages, right at the bottom, there's two sets of permissions. So you can enable the admin to view the rollback history, and you can enable the actual rollback for the module. So, and as you can see from the release notes, it's listing all the module types. So these permissions are applicable to all modules individually. So you need to set them per module that you want to give permissions to. I think by default they're turned off. So even if you did enable rollbacks, it's not going to be visible to all your admins unless you turn that on for them if you've created an admin role. Okay, so this goes into more detail about the restriction levels. So the two types we saw there, can view and manage rollback history. Can view rollback history actually allows them to see it and restore if they need to. The enabling of the rollback for the module itself allows the admin to see it in the settings. So whether they can turn it on or off in the actual settings. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be visible by default for pages and content templates, but any other modules, you're going to have to put the permissions on manually if you want that. Okay, next on the list we have domain redirects. So previously we had to contact support to get domain level redirects happening. So if, for example, you always want to direct your default domain to the www subdomain, or if you have multiple domains for a site but you want to have all those sort of secondary domains redirect to the primary domain, you can now set those up yourself. And this is done through the portal. So obviously if we go to our live sites, because so trial sites don't have domain set up, so it's not available for trial sites, but in your live sites, I'm just going to go to my site. Okay, and you go into the settings. So you should see domain redirects tab now. And we can set up a new redirect. And basically it's going to give us a list of all the available domains. So I might say, okay, I want to redirect my primary domain. So I want to redirect that to the www version. So we can see that in the list. So I think this is providing that when you've added the domain and gone through that setup process, that you've ticked that box to add a www record, and you put that, and that record's in your DNS. So hopefully that's showing for you. So you can choose the www version, and I can save that, and we've got our redirect in place. Or for example, I want this subdomain here always coming back to the main primary domain. So whatever your needs are there. So yeah, so I know that's been a bit of a long-awaited functionality. Yeah, previously we've been contacting support to do that, so hopefully that takes a bit of load off support and makes things more streamlined for when taking a site live. And there's a whole heap of information there about how that sort of works in more detail, so you can have a look at that. Next one is in the portal, we have a new leadership team page. So this is available for partners and partner agency level resellers. So basically they have access to the team page. So giving us access to the leadership team where we can actually contact relevant team members if needed and reach out to them directly. So partners and agency level resellers sort of giving that little bit extra support. Okay, and the last one for the backlog items, it's kind of a bit more of a fix or an enhancement to the workflow notifications for payments. So I think what was happening is the workflow for the form, for a payment form, wasn't being sent in the case that it was a PayPal, had Stripe 3D Secure set up. So when the form submitted, sort of redirected to the third-party payment provider and then came back to the site, that sort of redirect wasn't triggering the workflows. That's how I understand it. So now that's in place now, so workflows should work as intended. Okay, and I'll just quickly run through the bug fixes. There's just a handful in this release. So there was an issue with saving the SEO priority on the SEO tab. That was being removed, so you might want to just check some key sites if that was affecting you. Filtering orders in the order component via the case ID wasn't working. That should be fixed. When you're customizing the table for like a custom module, the table view, if it would start creating duplicate columns. So that was just a bug in that. That should be fixed. In the portal, when you submit support tickets, the last update time was not in the local partner time, so that could have been a bit confusing. And then there was that issue with advanced CRM groups and the order that you create those fields or sort those fields was getting sort of jumbled up every time you saved the record or made changes. So the order of those records should now be more stable. And offline payments, so basically when you're creating those sort of manual payment entries, we now have the ability to edit and delete any type of payment record for the offline payments. And discount codes, for the release and expiry dates of the discount code, it was in UTC time, where it should have been in the site time zone, so that the site knows when to apply those discount codes or allow those discount codes. And lastly, just an issue with exporting event bookings. Looks like if you had advanced CRM group fields attached to that booking form, those weren't being exported with the export, but they should be now. Okay, and that's the 6.4 release. So yeah, hopefully everyone can have a play with the backup extension and give the team your feedback so that they can improve on that while it's in the beta stage, and that way we'll get the best extension when they roll it out as the paid option. Okay, thanks guys. Talk to you later. Bye.